illusionary belief is that hanging on to these things are going to prevent us from feeling pain in the future, without realizing that hanging on to things just causes me to feel more pain in the moment.
Hey, thank you for coming. Welcome to the Love Shack.
Today, I have really good news for you. We are going to do a Q&A from you. We're diving deep into the very questions that have resonated with you. From communication breakdowns to trust issues, we're going to explore the common obstacles that contest even the strongest of partnerships. We're going to embark on this journey together. And here's the really fun part. Tom and I don't have any idea what the questions are going to be, because Brookie Brown, the girl behind the scenes, has curated and pulled these things from our followers from all social media platforms, as well as clients that engage with us on a day-by-day private basis. So let's go, shall we? Let's jump in. Brookie Brown, what's your first question?
Number one is, how do you deal with a partner who defaults to defensiveness in the form of mocking or insulting?
That's hard. And the reason why that's hard is because the first thing you're going to do is get defensive yourself, which the best thing I could do is say, you know what you're saying is hurting my feelings. You're mocking me. I feel like you're getting defensive. Is there anything that you need to hear from me to calm down so that we can have a conversation? If not, okay, go ahead, be defensive. But you know what? I'm not going to stick around for you to criticize me, belittle me, or mock me. So I'm going to tap out. I'm going to pause. And when you get clear about what it is you want to say, then go ahead and come and get me, because I do really want to hear what you have to say, but not at my expense. That is a no-fly zone. And nobody needs to set themselves up for that. If there's anything I'm really passionate about in my private work or online work with couples, is that nobody gets to put somebody in a corner and then just expect me to join them in ganging up on them. Like, that's a no-fly zone. And that's never going to take us in the direction that we need to go anyway. So you can say, sorry, you're having a difficult day, but you don't get to take this out on me. We're done now. Why don't you come get me when you have something that you want to share with me? It helps us move the needle forward in the direction we want to go.
Which is very atypical, because typically we try to match that defensiveness with our defensiveness, right?
Yes.
So we're going to, as if that's going to help us.
Yeah, back to my analogy, it's kind of like everybody's going right, you're going to go left. Because you know where turning right takes you. It always is going to take you to an escalated fight. You get defensive because they're defensive and mocking you and belittling you and criticizing you. We all know where that's going to take us, right? Yes, you deserve to stick up for yourself, but stick up for yourself in a way that shuts it down, not escalates it. Don't add fuel to the fire, so to speak. Take your power to create and go in a different direction and shut it down by saying, you can do this. I'm not participating. Come get me when you're clear about what it is you have to say.
Question 2. A question that many of our followers and every human on the planet probably is wondering. We talk a lot about letting go of the past. So we just had a question posted today really that said, but how do I let go? How do I really let go? Because we talked in our last episode, we love to hold on to these things to remind us of the pain. So how can we really stop letting those things hold us back?
There's 2 parts to letting go. And I want you to think about letting go as a practice, just like exhaling. There's an inhale and an exhale for us as a human being. And I think that's the greatest association that I have to letting go, is that we're navigating life and it's coming at us fast and furious. And we accumulate a lot of things that are working for us and a lot of things, quite frankly, that don't work for us. And then there's these things that happen that we don't know what to do with. And our inclination, like we've talked about in the previous podcast, of how we start hanging on to things, is that the illusionary belief is that hanging on to these things are going to prevent us from feeling pain in the future, without realizing that hanging on to things just causes me to feel more pain in the moment instead. And so that's a great question. How do we let go? That's a practice. I have to recognize and realize where I end and my person begins, and that what I need to focus on is doing my part in knowing that I'm showing up congruent in the relationship. Let me give you an example. I have to be able to ask for what I want, advocate for what I need, or address anything that might be coming up in my relationship that's not working for me. And when I can't do that, and I'm asking to be able to do that, and maybe my partner is upset, they're throwing a fit, they're not wanting to engage, they're not wanting to keep their agreements, they're not wanting to participate or contribute because they're going through some emotional difficult things themselves. In the letting go process, this, I've got to recognize and realize that that doesn't have anything to do with me and a wrestle that they're having. And so I've got to let that go. I've got to be able to just say, this doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm going to do my part to feel better about what I am doing. And I'm going to just trust that they're going to work this out. And I'm going to ask them, can I support you? Can I help you in this? Otherwise, I've got to let it go. Let's say there's things in the past too that have happened. Let's say that somebody's hurt your feelings, said some really messed up things, or maybe broken trust in a myriad of ways, whether that's spending money, gambling, drinking, addiction, booze, or actually an affair. These are the things that tend to get us bogged down that we can't let go of. And here's the thing, we need to understand what you can do and what you can't do. So just as I had said, you can advocate, you can let it know, you can express it, you can work on it. And sometimes your partner is not in a place where you can do that with him or her. And they'll say, I can't talk about this right now. I don't want to do this right now. I can't go there right now. And you'll start to see the defensiveness come up in some of these bigger places where, really, you're going to go there? That just means I don't want to address it and I don't want to talk. And so then these are things in the letting go process that you've got to learn to digest down and get support and help with on your own, so that you can start to see, okay, wait, they're just dealing with their own feelings of guilt and shame or addiction or broken trust or broken agreements or their unwillingness to get going themselves. This doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm going to do what I need to do for me. And I'm going to have to encourage them to, at some point in time, re-engage in the relationship. It's going to continue. But in the end, I've got to be able to navigate and let go of it myself. I guess at the end, as we summarize it, it's a process that's ongoing. You don't just let it go once and be done with it. These things are going to come up and they're going to be triggered by your environment, by a song, by an event, by some kind of an external trigger. And in those moments, you're going to have to say, I've dealt with that. I've done what I can do with this. I need to let it go. And sometimes for me personally, even when these triggers come up, I have to pull over and just take a minute and breathe or cry, and it could be triggered by a myriad of things. And we all have them as human beings. We all have things that trigger us from our past. And we have to ask ourselves, is this happening now? Or is this something I'm remembering from my past? That's part of letting go. That's why letting go is a process, like brushing your teeth or folding your clothes or doing the laundry. And sometimes I think what we think is that if it comes up again, I haven't resolved it yet. That's not true. You resolved it yesterday, last week, last month, even sometimes in the last hour. And now I need to resolve it again, knowing that I've done all I can do in this moment to let it go. And then I let it go again.
What would you say? Because what's coming up for me, and I think this is fair for others, is if we do let it go, then we're giving permission to that egregious behavior or that,
you're letting it go because there's nothing more you can do with it. You've done all you can do.
But do you find in working with people one-on-one, that's
absolutely
keeps them from allowing themselves
part of the illusion. It's part of not understanding where I end and you begin. Because if there's nothing more you can do with it in this moment and you've done what you can do, then your job is to feel good about who you are, how you're showing up, and how you're navigating through it. That's your job. And so if there's nothing more that you can do with it, then you're going to find yourself at this impasse where there's nothing more I can affect change in doing what I'm doing. So is what you're doing helping you show up better in the relationship or showing up in a way that you feel good about showing up in? Otherwise, what's going to happen is it's going to turn you into a monster. You're going to start then getting defensive. You're going to start saying and doing things that feel really crappy to you. And that's a great way to just escalate the pain for yourself, really. You're still not amassing any kind of change. And if anything, you're going to spark escalation on the other side with your partner in this co-creation called a relationship. So I've got to do some things that keep me in a good spot, that keep me in a place where I recognize and realize what I can affect change with and what I can't affect change with. And if I can't affect change, if this doesn't belong to me, if I've done what I know I can do, then I need to let go of it and be done. And that's a process. Letting go is something that you do consistently. It's not a one and done. So these triggers can be difficult to deal with. And I want you to be able to identify them as a trigger and to be able to identify also, is this happening now or is this creating a memory from my past? And have I done what I needed to do with the past? Then I just need to let it go. Or is this signaling me to say something, to advocate for something, to elicit support? One of my favorite things to do is very counterintuitive when I notice that there are some things coming up that are a trigger from our past, for example, or any of my past. to challenge myself to just say, what can I do to support you? Because I notice that this is a firing off method for me, which tells me that you're struggling because you're acting out. So rather than me start to act out because you're acting out, which is just going to escalate a fight and create a problem, I'm going to say, how can we get to resolution really quick? And my quickest path that I have found to resolution with a partner is, what do you need? Is there anything that I can do to support you in showing up better? Because the way you're showing up is impacting me, instead of me trying to shut it down by saying, you don't get to say that, you can't go there, what you're doing, you're being a real big dick or a-hole. That's typically how we handle that. So it's a very intuitive thing. The images coming up in my mind right now is like driving and everybody's going right and you choose to go left. It's like that because I see and recognize that you're struggling and you're taking it out on me. So rather than attack that, how can I help you feel better right now so that we don't continue to escalate this? Let me support you in showing up better. If there's something I have in the gas tank to do that, then maybe this can avoid an escalation, because I know the minute I start adding to it and I start getting defensive and I start showing up and escalating, I know where that's going to take us. And that's what I'm trying to avoid by attempting to shut it down. Does that make sense? And that, again, is part of the letting go process.
This is a long-term play here. We need to do a number of rounds, most of us, yes? As wonderful may be to just say we're going to let it go. That's not at all what we're saying here. This is a process, but at the end of the day, like Staci said, I think it's important. Is this leading you, if you're choosing to not be able to let it go, is it leading you to be able to feel better? Because remember, you show up as good as we feel.
Well, and I know the minute personally that I start saying and doing some things that are not okay inside of myself, man, that was harsh, or gee, you were kind of an a-hole, or my gosh, did you have to be so sharp, shut it down? Then I start to feel really crappy about myself. This is how we start to turn into monsters of ourselves. That's just going to spiral my own fear and insecurity inside of myself. Because now I'm really reeling and I'm really like spinning out of control, and it's on my own volition because I've just allowed myself, because of what you've done, to say and do some things I don't feel good about.
Well, it's going to require everyone to grow. You have to raise your game, because what got you into this situation, to be fair, is not going to get you out. That's a classic definition of insanity. So we're going to have to raise our game and be able to turn and face this situation and learn from it and grow from it to be able to let go and become stronger from it. That is possible.
And I just need to interject this here. Obsessive thinking about what has happened does nothing but just spike your own internal pain. The minute we start obsessing on something instead of doing something about it or letting it go, those are my two options. I can address it with you. I can say something. I can ask for something that I need. I can ask for assurance, support. I can affirm what I know to be true inside of myself, because maybe I know some things that I did or didn't do and you're trying to convince me otherwise. And I go, that's just not the case. Sorry. I'm going to stand on that, and then I'm going to let it go, because I know that I'm on solid ground there inside of myself. But the minute I start obsessing about trying to figure out something or control something that's outside of my own experience is the minute that I'm going to start spiking my own internal emotional pain. And it's really important for you to know that. So guess what I got to do? I got to let it go, because this is something I can't affect control of or change within. And I've done what I can do as far as affecting change or control within myself. So then I got to practice letting it go. And that might be that day, hour, weekly, monthly process we just talked about, because there's going to be things that are going to spike. Oh, this still isn't resolved. Okay, I got to let it go. I've done what I can do. That's why it's a practice.
All right, it's time to leave the Love Shack. But before we part ways, we want you to know our door is always open, and we'll leave the porch light on, ready to welcome you back whenever you need a dose of relationship wisdom. For more resources and tools, visit us at loveshacklive.com.